Welcome to Speak Your Mind, and with me this afternoon, I have the Executive Director and Board Chair of Pacific Island Food Revolution, and he's also the author of the third best cookbook in the world in all categories by the Frankfurt Book Fair for his work on Miakai, the food of the South Pacific. Robert Oliver, thank you for coming on the
Nice to be here.
Show this afternoon.
Yeah.
Of course, one of the things that we're going to be speaking about a lot is season 3 for Pacific Island Food Revolution.
That's why I'm here.
Could you tell me more about that and like what people can expect that could be different about the show this season?
Well, we're filming entirely in Fiji, for one, because it's too hard to travel at the moment.
Yeah.
And we just had to modify what we did. But with the other islands are still involved. My producer and director are going to go to Samoa, PNG, Vanuatu, and the Kingdom of Tonga and get footage. So we'll still have episodes themed around the various countries, and we're getting contestants here in Suva to represent those countries. So we've got a great Samoan team, we've got a great Papua New Guinean team, we've got about 9 million Fijians want to be want to be in it. We think we have a Tongan team, but we're still putting it up. We may need a Tongan team. We really need a team from Vanuatu, based in Fiji. So, I mean, the other reason we chose, if we had to choose one place to film everything for this year only, Fiji's obviously, Suva's the place because everyone's here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what about the progress with the teams? How were they picked? And when did you call for auditions?
So we called for auditions a couple of weeks ago. We've seen a lot of people. How do they pick? I mean, I'm not looking for chefs. I'm looking. This is a cooking show that's about people and their food, not about someone who takes a taro and makes a shape of vanua levu and puts dots on it. That's not our scene at all. We want recipes people can make at home.
Okay.
So one of the criteria is just people who represent their country and speak to the food culture of their country, who like to cook, but in no way do I want chefs. I mean, it's good to have the odd chef because they put a lot of energy into it, but this is not about chefs. But also, I look for people with personality. I mean, and that's not a problem in the Pacific. Yeah.
Well, I saw some of the audition flyers that you have, and one of the things that was highlighted was you were looking for friends, for family members, for cousins, for brothers and sisters, or an aunt and her niece, mother and daughter. Why specifically that kind of a relationship?
Well, any kind of team, any kind of, but it's better if they know each other, because they are on camera, and you don't want them learning about each other as they go, and the vibe between them gets communicated quite powerfully on camera. So yeah, that's why. And we also want diversity. I mean, we want older women, we want younger people, we want gender. The whole gender diversity of the Pacific should be represented. So that's why that is put out in that way.
What about the criteria for those who need to participate? What are some of the criteria that you have in place?
Just that they like to cook, they communicate well, and they want to, represent their country and don't mind being on a big international cooking show that plays all over the world. Because some people get intimidated by that, but some people love it. Yeah.
And we've seen time and time again, especially with reality TV shows that focus on cooking, right? So here in the Pacific, something like this, our very own, what's something that you want showcased differently? I mean, you've spoken about some of the recipes, eh?
Well,
what's something you want to see? What's something you want to see that's different?
Cuisine. People, the Fiji has its own cuisine. Samoa has its own cuisine. And cuisine is the cultural system of food. So it's what we take for granted. It's local food. But the rest of the world has not seen it. Outside of the Fijian community and Fiji and Australia, for example, most Australians and New Zealanders don't know what Fijian food is, apart from what they get at a resort, which usually doesn't represent very well the culture of the country. So a lot of the international feedback has been they didn't know this food was here, and people travel for food. And even if they don't travel specifically for food, they eat every day when they're in a place, and that's an opportunity for the tourism industry to put that kind of brand recognition in place. And I'm always keen for the various countries' cuisine to be on the tourism menus, because that's a link to local farmers. If you have an international menu on a hotel, you've got to import all the food, and all that money leaves the country, and it could stay in the hand of local farmers and fishermen and producers. So there's a development objective to that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with traditional dishes in the Pacific and how you said, like, you like to see people's own recipe.
Yeah.
Given that you've had 2 seasons already, how do you pick participants who might not sort of repeat a recipe that's been done before on the other 2 seasons?
Because we structure the episodes so that they are challenged. They call them challenges in reality TV. They're challenged to make something that meets a need in the community. Like a lot of the reason that we're doing Pacific Island Food Revolution is because the diabetes numbers in the whole region are shocking. We all know that. And people can talk about nutrition until they're blue in the face. That's not the way we eat. We don't eat according to vitamin C or any of that stuff. We eat what we love to eat.
Yeah.
That's just human nature. So the idea behind Pacific Island Food Revolution was if people were going back to local food, that would be taken care of. Because really the diabetes numbers are a result of a change in the way Pacific people eat. They've gone more towards processed and sugary stuff and away from the market.
And was that the initial idea behind this whole Pacific Revolution?
100%, that's the idea.
The whole health angle,
Yeah, but we don't need to talk about health because we just get people excited about the food, the health gets looked after.
And what would you say? I mean, you said that you need 2 more countries, but what if someone is interested here that you need a Vanuatu team? Now, there might be a Tonga team, but what if there are people that are interested now? How can they apply?
So best thing is to go to our Pacific Island Food Revolution Facebook page, and the information's sitting right there. That's the easy thing to do.
So when they apply, do they have to
They meet with me? No, they don't have to bring a dish. They meet with me. We make sure that they sparkle, and that's never a problem. That's never a problem. And we just meet with them, make sure it's what they want to do. Yeah. But usually by the time they get to us, they're clear on that themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's definitely something I want to touch more on, but we'll just go to a quick break and we'll be back. You're on Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind, and with me I have Robert Oliver, who is the Executive Director and Board Chair of Pacific Island Revolution. Now, we spoke about like some of the ways people can apply, I mean, by going onto your social media pages, of course, but when will you start shooting season 3?
In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks?
Yeah. In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, you think you'll be able to get a Vanuatu team by then?
Absolutely.
Have there been any applications coming forward for Vanuatu team?
Not for Vanuatu. That's the one that I really want. So if you're from Vanuatu and you live in Suva, we want to see you. And Vanuatu won the competition in season 1. I mean, the Vanuatu teams blew everybody out in every season. Because many people did not know about the food of Vanuatu, about the traditional food of Vanuatu, and it's really extraordinary. So it's like a treasure. And most people in Vanuatu just think, it's everyday food. It's just that. But when the international audience sees it, and often when people, like a lot of Tongans had never seen Vanuatu food before. But when the international audience sees it, it just gets crazy. So if you're Nivan and you're living in Suva, please go onto our social media, Facebook, Pacific Island Food Revolution, and all the instructions about how to contact us are there, then we'll sit down.
And is that the only thing you look for when you meet them during the interviews or when they apply? Is, like you said, you want to see if they can sparkle. So how does the food factor into that?
Oh, well, I mean, of course they have to like to cook. I mean, that's a given. But they don't have to be a chef.
They don't have to be a chef.
Yeah. Most people know how to cook. Yeah.
And is there anything different about this particular season that you're hoping for?
No, we just want to keep doing what we're doing because it's really working. I mean, we've had crazy results come in from, because we're supported by the New Zealand and Australian government, who wanted something innovative to help with the NCD numbers, and we were commissioned to do a impact assessment at the end of year 2, and the results were absolutely eye-wateringly good. That the project is working, so we want to keep going. Yeah, if we keep on this track, I think we'll see the NCD numbers start to go down.
And what about some of the dishes that you've been, like let's say, that will come out of the seasons from season 1 and 2? Have you received feedback on them? On like
just that people love them,
yeah,
and all the recipes go up on our website, so people can take them into their homes and lives. And I mean, there's so much creativity here. So it's also about the fact that some people think of Fijian food as being lovo and a few other things.
Yeah.
But Fijian food is so much more. And if you walk into the market, you see so much more than potential, even than what we already know. So you get people who come in, like we had a team in season 1 from Fiji, Shamima Manasa, and they just kept blowing us out with the creativity around moda and around fusing Italke and Indo-Fijian cultures, and these were new dishes, but they're familiar because we know the ingredients and we kind of know part of them.
Yeah.
So that's the energy that we really like with Pacific Island Food Revolution. It's really, all cuisines around the world, they're dynamic. They evolve. They have people, in restaurants and in people's lives doing riffs and new versions of the foundation dish, and that's the kind of movement bit that we are working on.
Is there a particular ingredient that is commonly used that you find or you look forward to seeing someone sort of elevate or do differently?
All the greens.
All the greens.
All the greens. There's so many greens here, and all through the Pacific. So through most of the Pacific, there's like 80% of the same crops, but then every place has got its special things as well. So, yeah.
So what would you say is different between, let's say, Fiji and Tonga or Fiji and Vanuatu?
Oh, man, you're really challenging me here today, aren't you? So Vanuatu's got a lot of nuts. It's got navel, navara, or navara is vara, nangai, and they are like almondy macadamia type things, and they use them a lot in their cooking.
Okay.
And I mean, the things like EV are everywhere, but you don't think of them as being, a kind of a staple. But actually, that's what makes the cuisine interesting, is all these things like the nama and the EV and all those kind of boutique things.
I'm actually interested. I actually want to try it now, the way you're describing it.
I'm actually getting hungry talking to you.
Which is quite interesting, because you never would have, no one would ever think to use that. That's in the dish, the way that they're doing it.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of getting people on camera and giving them a challenge to kind of, take it up a notch. And they always do. They always do.
Out of the 2 seasons that you've released, what would you say is the most interesting dish in terms of the way greens are used? The one that's the most memorable to you?
The Shamima Manasa did a moda and eggplant and bora bean kind of salad. It could be warm or room temperature, but it was so good.
The taste, the flavors.
And just the textures were great. There was a sparkle to them. Everything, every ingredient, so familiar and so like boring, right? But the way they treated it, they just brought out some magic, and that's their special thing. Yeah, we found there's no end of talent. Yeah.
And I know COVID was sort of like this major roadblock for everyone, across the world. What about in terms of you shooting it, or season 2? Was that ever affected?
No, because we were finished at the end of 2019. So we just got finished in time. And then it takes another, few months for it to come out, all editing and distribution and all the promo stuff. So it didn't come out till September or so, 2020.
Okay.
And everyone was pretty much locked down by then.
What would you say was one of the major changes from that, from full Pacific Island Revolution?
You mean from COVID?
Not just from COVID, but like moving forward past season 2.
Well, I mean, I think seeing what happened in the Pacific around, not from what we did, from seeing the fact that everyone did more backyard gardening, and I just saw all the Facebook groups, the cooking groups emerge, and all over the Pacific, not just in Fiji. And also, the people who'd been on our show had become well known by then, and so they were cooking more and doing stuff online. And so I always wanted to make something that people wanted to be a part of, and like a movement. And I feel that we saw that happening. It wasn't just us; we just happened to be, in one of the lanes that was where all this stuff was going on. Yeah. So I feel very encouraged by. There's a silver lining to the COVID thing in that people went back to the basics, and the basics are good. Yeah. And the Pacific basics are only basic to us. To everyone else, they're very exotic.
Definitely want to talk more on that one, but we'll just go to a quick break and we'll be back. You're on Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind, where we're talking about food and loving food, every type. I have with me Robert Oliver, who is also the Executive Director and Board Chair of Pacific Island Food Revolution. Revolution being the key word here. You not just want to change lives, but you want to change eating behaviors. Here in the Pacific, where we have this sort of saying, more is better. Quantity over quality, and that's one of the things that you're hoping to change more. And you said you saw it during COVID, where people went back to the basics. What other basics would you're hoping that people would adopt from the show?
Just an appreciation for what is already here. I want to tell you a funny thing, because you said the word revolution.
Yeah.
So my co-host for the Kingdom of Tonga is Her Royal Highness Princess Pilolevu. Okay. And when we were doing the launch of Pacific Island Food Revolution in Fiji, her and I gave the keynote addresses at the launch.
Yeah.
And she said to me, she said to this whole crowd of people, "Here I am, a royal, advocating for a revolution, and especially one with so much chopping." That's her. That's her. She's her particular brand of humor is so. I mean, people don't expect her to say that kind of thing, but she's sort of a real character, and she's incredible on screen. What was your other question? Sorry.
You spoke about the basics.
Yeah.
So, what are you hoping more people adopt from these basics?
They are adopting them.
Yeah.
So I don't have to hope. It is happening, and just to really appreciate the beauty and the dimension and the potential of all the natural foods that exist here ordinarily. And there's all these great things that can be done with them, and there's innovation everywhere, and that's the space that we hope to energize.
So from the audiences that love the show, season 1 and 2 were big hits, like you said. Have them playing on all Pacific channels throughout the South Pacific. And what would be something that you would love to see, rather, that would be great to be different? Or rather, is there something in season 3 that is different than the other 2 seasons in terms of challenges and moving forward?
I'm not quite there yet, because I'm doing, my producer just arrived, so we're doing the scripting tomorrow.
Okay.
But I would say, because we're not just a TV show, right? The TV is the bit that everyone knows about.
Okay.
And that's why we did TV, because people watch TV, and it develops this community. But we've got other things going on as well. So I'll give an example. In season 2 in Vanuatu, 2 of our contestants became very well known locally, and they had their community saying, we want a food revolution too. And so we work with the Asia Foundation, which has just set up shop here back in Suva.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm okay?
No.
Yeah. And we supported them to create like a local food revolution, which is now going all over Vanuatu. So, and there's 5 or 6 initiatives like that we are overseeing and cultivating and supporting.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and the Asia Foundation is working with us on a lot of that.
And which one of those initiatives are you currently doing in Fiji at the moment?
Well, we're about to do something, and I'm not allowed to talk about it.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully we'll be the first to know.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's so true that in the Pacific, diabetes affects a lot of Fijians. I mean, I think we were ranked number 3, then somewhere down, was it this year that we were ranked number 1 in terms of, which is scary for a small island country like Fiji. So you spoke about that impact assessment report a bit earlier. Could you tell me more about what came out of that report as well? You highlighted a few things, but
yeah, I'm so used to talking about it, I can tell you exact numbers.
Yeah.
So what we were keen to see was how many people are watching the show, because that's where the results will come out of. So 83% of Tongans were watching, 82% of Samoans, 68% of Fijians, 49% of people in Vanuatu. So that we just surveyed those 4 countries. But we also know that Papua New Guineans, we have our most committed, passionate, opinionated audience, because they come to us all the time saying, why aren't you filming in Papua New Guinea? How dare you? So of those numbers, those are really high numbers, right, to watch a TV show. 42% on average of all of those numbers said that they'd changed the way they eat. And they changed the way they viewed local food as a result of Pacific Island Food Revolution.
which is what you wanted.
It's huge.
Yeah, that's huge.
And behavior change, which is what people look for, takes usually 8 to 10 years, and we're only 2 years in. So it's really encouraging. So there's other numbers associated to that, like the difference between people who watch Pacific Island Food Revolution and those who do not.
Yeah.
Like, if you watch it in Tonga, you're 3 times more likely to be making a local healthy food choice. And in Fiji, I think it was like 38% times more likely, really high. So yeah, so it's working. That's why I'm determined to keep going.
Did you ever think that going into the second season that you that this would all happen? I mean, that it would go this big?
I did it because I thought it would work. I mean, I have a long history with the Pacific. I grew up in Fiji, and but also I have this television life. You know, I was a judge on My Kitchen Rules, and that was where I realized, because I was like, it's trashy TV. And then I was like, man, this trashy TV really works. The reality TV there's a sportsman element to it, and that's what gets people in. And it's good-natured, you know, so I always believed this would work, yeah. Yeah, because I always, I knew the food was good. So I knew the local food was what would provide the solution locally. But how do you do it? And so I had 2 beliefs. One is that the food was great and that the reality TV format works. So put those 2 together and, you know, and then overnight success, right? It took me years to get people to understand what I was talking about. Years and years.
Do.
Yeah.
What about the feedback that you received personally from people? Have people come up to you? What would you say was something that you really took to heart and you remember till this day?
Oh, so many.
Yeah.
So many. And it happens to everyone who's involved. Her Royal Highness gets a lot of people talking to her about it. In Fiji, Dr. John Hawea hosted 2 seasons with me. And if him and I walk down the street, school kids, you know, wave out to us. And that's
a great target
powerful
audience.
Yeah. And Vanuatu, the same with Fatasi Mackenzie Rowe and Dora Rossi in Samoa.
Yeah.
So I get stuff literally every day. I can't name one.
You can't name one,
but it's all the time. And the reason I do TV and books is because people get to see themselves in a new way, and that's the magic. That's there's magic in that. And so we often get comments about they didn't realize how beautiful they were, and people really relate to the contestants in the show because they are the magic, actually. So that people are like, well, my auntie's just like that, and that could be me. And
they're so relatable in a way.
And so that's what casting is all about. Auditions are all about, is getting contestants that people will say, oh, that's kind of like me. Yeah. And that's why reality TV works, by the way. It's not just all the bitchery you see on. We don't have any of that, but a lot of the other shows do, but we stay away from that.
Interesting. But I definitely want to talk more about this, but we'll go to a quick break and we'll be back. You're on Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind, where I have the pleasure of talking with Robert Oliver, who is not just a renowned chef throughout the world, but he's also an executive director and board chair of Pacific Island Food Revolution. We've gone so much into the details of how participants or those who wish to apply can come on can apply to be part of the show. But what are other things that you're looking for?
Looking for in the show, just looking for new ways to encourage this process of loving local food. That's all. I get a lot of support. I have a very good board.
Yeah.
So we are a small NGO, but on my board I have Jenny Sito from Fiji, who's also chair of Investment Fiji. I've got Sir Colin Tukuitonga, who everyone in Fiji knows because he's the former head of SBC. And I have Professor Stephen Ratuva, who's probably the Fiji's best-known academic. So I get guided well by these people.
And this board was formed recently?
Yeah. Just in the last few months.
Okay.
But it's been awesome. Yeah.
And so the roles were advertised, of course.
No, actually, because I knew them all.
Okay.
And we knew they were right.
How so? How do each
because
member
they
fit
all
in?
brought different strengths to the process. Jenny Sito brings us governance and the detail that makes the machine tick.
Okay.
Sir Colin Tukuitonga just got knighted. He's probably the Pacific's foremost medical professional.
Okay.
So he's passionate about the well-being of Pacific people. He's Niuean. And Dr. Professor Stephen Ratuva, I think everyone in Fiji knows him, a son of Kandavu.
Yeah.
And he brings the wider vision. What is the food relationship to climate change? What is the food relationship to biodiversity? How does that fit with everything? And so that is the way I think as well. But it's really good to have somebody who can give me the language and give me the logic that makes it work for investors, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's been great for me to have a board at this level.
And what about in terms of investors? Are they running to the table?
Well, no, it's always a hustle, right? I mean, we've had a great relationship with the New Zealand and Australian governments, and that's actually the right relationship to have because they are the Pacific.
Yeah.
And also they're heavily engaged on all levels of political and development life here. But also we all know Australians and New Zealanders, and we all have family in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
So it's a deeper relationship. And I've just found that they actually care about the well-being of people here. It's not just a development tick. There's a real care. Everyone in Australia and New Zealand knows someone in the Pacific, or they've had a great visitor experience here. So it's a heart thing, not just a head thing.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, how about apart from season 3, what else is the Pacific Island Food Revolution planning to do?
We plan on growing our community project base more, and that's really where our growth will be. I mean, I don't want to be leading this forever, and I only wanted to open the door myself. In fact, I'm always managing my own identity with the project because my identity could overwhelm the project, and that's not the point. So our growth will be working with the Asia Foundation, working with UNICEF, working with Save the Children, working with schools, all that stuff, working with the local ministries. We've had great meetings with the Fijian Health Ministry, and bringing it to the ground, off the screen and into lives. Yeah.
Now, I know you spoke about reality TV, sort of being that, mission, or rather for everyone to feel they can relate to. One of the things that piqued my interest was something you said earlier, how school kids recognized you. Is there, down the line, will there ever be one involving children?
There
in
already
cooking?
is one.
Really?
Yeah, we developed with UNICEF in 2019 Pacific Kids Food Revolution as a YouTube series.
As a YouTube series?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that played on TV. I mean, we never
Dreamed of
planned
it.
on it going on TV, but it did. And that's it's all filmed here in Suva with 4 Fijian kids.
Yeah.
And we just met with UNICEF yesterday, UNICEF Pacific here in Suva, and we're going to take that regional.
Nice.
And this is the thing, and McDonald's understands, right? If you get a kid as a customer, you've got a customer for life. So we just need to hook them into the right stuff.
I mean, there are a lot of kids that love to cook. I have nieces and nephews who love to compete when one has to fry an egg, or one has to, let's say, cook a dish. They want to up there because the competition and the love for food is there.
Yeah.
Which it's fun. It would be great to see that taken to the next level, that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what would you just say would be the main inspiration behind Pacific Island Food Revolution, and how did you start the program?
Well, I think I covered it when I talked about how I understood that reality TV was an asset, and that I believed in the local food. I mean, I lived all over the world. I grew up in Fiji, but I lived in New York for 20 years. And you live in a city like New York, and every culture is represented in restaurants, but not us. So I just thought, well, that story should be out there. And it's gratifying to me that Pacific Island Food Revolution plays prime time in Australia and New Zealand. Prime time in Australia is a big deal.
Yeah.
It plays all through Southeast Asia. It plays in the United Kingdom, and it plays in the United States. I love that story is going out there in such a big, fun, noisy way, and the international audience is lapping it up.
And I mean, was that part of the reason to focus international?
I have no idea. No, I never know what I'm doing. You think I'm clever, right? Not at all. I'm always winging it. That's why I need a good board. I've always got an idea that I often have trouble figuring out how to do it. But I've got a good team. We've got a guy called Andrew Grzybowski in Australia who helps with all of our proposals and all of that growth. And then Michelle Tavita Singh is working with me here in Fiji, running communications for the whole Pacific. So I'm pretty lucky.
Did you ever think that the show would be this successful?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did. Just from doing lots of TV. Yeah, and I have a fantastic television producer. So Cindy Lucas, who I work with on My Kitchen Rules, is producing this show. So she knows what she's doing.
Okay.
She did MasterChef for years. She knows this game. So we've got the best doing it. And it was important for me to get the best product because there's lots of TV out there. There's lots of, stuff in the market that I wanted that bit that had that extra stuff on it. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, you don't often get a princess, right?
Well, we could find out more when we return, but we'll just take a quick break. When we come back, you're on Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind. Now, Robert, you highlighted a lot of great things, but what I'd love to know is, what about you? What's one of your favorite restaurants, whether it be in Fiji or the Pacific?
There's so many. So first of all, in Suva, I love Eden up in Tamavua, because that to me is contemporary Suva food. It's got all the cultures. Sangeeta's a good friend. She's a bit crazy.
Yeah.
So that's got that fine dining-ish feel, but it's not prissy. It's not precious. It's really rootsy, awesome food. I really love the barbell.
Barbell.
Have you been to the Barbell?
Yes, I have. I love their seafood
I get
platter.
like a bit nuts on Tuesday because I haven't had a barbell fix since Saturday.
Sometimes sometimes I want to go and say, could you just give just a bit more? This is not enough.
Oh,
Because you know our appetite here in the Pacific, yeah?
Yeah, I think
it
that
is
food's
delicious.
amazing. I really love Kanalevu Kitchen.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, these restaurants, this is Itauke food. This wasn't in restaurants even 4 or 5 years ago. So we're blessed to have this going on. I went to Unfo. Have you been to Unfo?
Oh, man.
So
I can honestly
good.
say I haven't. Everyone's talked about it, but I haven't.
Well, it's Vietnamese.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I also don't want to just eat local food, but I do want real food.
Yeah.
So the Vietnamese is good. All the Indian food here, of course. I mean, it's the best in the world. I mean, you know, no one can knock that. But there's a lot going on in the other countries as well. There's great restaurants in Samoa.
Yeah.
The Leo Vusilai, who won Pacific Island Food Revolution in season 1, has just opened a restaurant in Vanuatu.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Get this in a Nakamau bar, in a kava bar. It's like perfect. You got kava, local food, a local star.
And it works.
What could be better? Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What about the winners from last season?
Yep. So that was Fiji.
Yeah.
Christel and Pio. Pio's got new grills. And I'm going to go and see him really soon.
Okay.
And you know they've taken their success and done their thing with it.
Yeah.
Very talented. Very talented. Like a real national treasure, both of them. Yeah.
And what about from that, you must have had even more people try to get in to represent Fiji when the call for auditions went out.
There's been a lot.
You said there was
There's been a lot. Yeah.
hundreds.
But we've got really good people, and we've chosen our team.
Any like?
And there's no way I'll tell you.
Well, I was hoping to get something. But what about books? Is there any books
Yeah.
in the future? I mean, you've had a big, huge success with Mea Kai, the food of the South Pacific.
Yeah. So we do have a book coming out soon, and it's the Pacific Island Food Revolution cookbook. So what happened was, one thing I learned from doing my first 2 books, I did a book for Samoa also, was that by the time a book arrives in Fiji or Samoa, it's very expensive. Books are expensive already, but then the duties, and it's unaffordable for most people. So when we looked into doing a Pacific Island Food Revolution cookbook, I was like, I want to do a digital cookbook that we can just give to everybody. So that I was interviewed by Radio New Zealand about a year ago and said I was going to do this book, and the countries in the show were Fiji, Samoa, Vanuatu, Tonga, and then right away other countries called and said, well, we want to be in this too. So we've got now 11 countries in this new cookbook coming out, and just like the Cook Islands, we've just got 3 or 4 recipes. So it's not an expose of their whole food culture. It's just an idea and like a taste of.
Okay.
And so there's 2 things. One, the digital version will be out September, and that will you go onto our website, pacificislandfoodrevolution.com. You register to be a food warrior, and then you can, when the book's ready, you'll be able to get a copy sent to you for free, good for phone or iPads. And then later on, we're collaborating once again with the Asia Foundation to publish that book as a hardcover book.
Okay.
That's for schools and libraries and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
What about advice? Is there any to the contestants that could be listening in today?
Not really. I mean, we've got people. I mean, I find that people are a little nervous on the first day, then they just get over it and they realize we're just doing stuff, and there just happen to be cameramen there. So I would say make it something you can do.
Okay.
It's when people try really hard to kind of show off that things go wrong, right?
Okay.
And there's no need to invent outside of this culture, because this culture's got everything.
What about for cooks in general? I mean, like you said, during COVID, a number of businesses popped up, people sticking to the basics, people creating dishes that normally someone would make at home, but because of the way they presented it, because of the way they created it, there were people who were literally driving to the locations to pick it up. What advice would you give to these cooks or upcoming chefs?
It's become like a movement, and I think that's because it was overdue. And so just this local food proposition is really powerful in the Pacific. It's not just food. The story of the food is the story of the people.
Yeah.
So that's what's emerging, and it's beautiful. It's like a renaissance of these various cultures, but in a food way.
And you, as a chef, obviously as an author, what's one ingredient from the Pacific you would say would be the most difficult ingredient to work with? One that you've had trouble in the past, and you've seen participants have trouble with as well on the show.
Well, we've had various things go wrong with EV when it's not cooked enough, because that stuff takes a while. So now we make sure we get it from the market pre-cooked and all that kind of, because you've got to do things in a short time on TV as well.
How long are you supposed to cook in EV, by the way? I'm just wondering.
Well, I mean, I get the Lovo one. I think that just goes in for like the Lovo time, whatever that is. But when I bought it, it's take a couple of hours. Yeah. But it's such a beautiful ingredient. I love grating it for cakes and all that kind of stuff. And it's like a soft chestnut flavor.
Well, what about, or rather, is there any restaurant right now in Fiji currently using, or a hotel that's currently using EV as an ingredient for one of their dishes?
I don't know offhand, but I'll bet some are. I'll bet some are, yeah. I mean, you just go to Kanlevu and Barbell and eat it, and you're going to see those ingredients pop up. Yeah, you're running out of questions, aren't you?
To be honest, all this talk about food is making me so hungry. It's making me so hungry that that's the only thing on my mind right now.
I'm thinking of running over to Curry House the second we're done here.
Which begs the question: do you have restaurants available here in Fiji?
Do I have restaurants?
Are you planning to open one?
Oh, no, that's not my thing. There's people who do restaurants much better than me. I'm better off sticking to the media thing.
I mean, you highlighted...
I've had restaurants, but I really didn't like having restaurants.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you've highlighted some of your favorite.
Yeah.
What about any businesses that exist online that came out of COVID? Was there one in particular that really caught your eye?
Well, there's a lot came out of Samoa. There's the Maua app. Have you seen that?
Yes.
It's like a back-end eBay type exchange system. It's like M-Pesa, but it's a way of people facilitating payment between, and it was used in food a lot. People in a village, for example, who are making lovo and such could sell to someone through the Maua app online. All payment was taken care of. So it made slow food fast. Yeah, so that's really cool. And we're doing an interview with Sam, who founded that, tomorrow, actually. Yeah. We have a series we've got a big YouTube presence, and on that we have a series called In the Kitchen, which is when I interview people who are doing awesome things.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So all that's, it's worth looking at all that stuff, because a lot of recipe videos on there and all that stuff.
I want to thank you for taking the time to come out today to talk more about this, and I'm really looking forward to season 3, and I'm pretty sure for those who've watched season 1 and 2, definitely will be feeling the same way.
Good.
And if you want to get in contact with Robert and his team, or would like to know more, visit their website, of course, but also their social media presence on Facebook. And
Facebook is best.
Facebook is best.
Yeah.
So there you go. Thank you so much for being with us today. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for, but you can join us same time, same place next week. You're on Speak Your Mind.
Thank you.